The stars looked different from the observation deck of the Kelvari research vessel. They had been studying this small blue planet for 3 orbital cycles now, and Captain Zex was growing impatient. His gray skin wrinkled around his large eyes as he stared at the viewscreen. "Scientist Mur, what have you learned about these primitives?" Captain Zex asked. Scientist Mur's thin fingers danced across the control panel. "They call themselves humans. Their technology is crude. They have only reached their own moon and sent simple probes to nearby planets. They fight among themselves, constantly." Captain Zex nodded. This was typical of young species. The Kelvari Imperium had ruled the galaxy for over 1,000 years. They had seen hundreds of developing species come and go. Some were allowed to join the Imperium as servants. Others were wiped out if they posed any threat. "They seem harmless enough," Captain Zex said. "But the Council wants specimens for study. Select 5 individuals and bring them aboard." "Scientist." Mur bowed. "It will be done." On Earth, Alan Nelson sat at his control station in the Earth Defense Force headquarters. The EDF was a small organization, created after nations finally put aside their differences following the climate wars of the 2120s. Alan was 35 years old with short brown hair and tired eyes. He had been working double shifts all week, because something strange kept appearing on the long-range sensors. "Sir, I'm picking up that anomaly again," Alan said to his supervisor. Colonel Joe Barnes walked over and looked at the screen. "Still think it's a ship?" "Yes, sir. The pattern is too regular to be natural. Something is up there watching us." Colonel Barnes sighed. "Nelson, we've been over this. If aliens existed and had the technology to reach Earth, they would have made contact by now." "With respect, sir, not if they were studying us first," Alan replied. Before the colonel could answer, the alarm sounded. The anomaly was moving, coming closer to Earth. At the same time, Samantha Wright was jogging through a park in Portland. She was 28, athletic, with her blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail. As a lieutenant in the Air Force, she stayed in shape even on her days off. She stopped to catch her breath and looked up at the night sky. A faint blue light caught her attention. It was moving too fast to be a plane, too controlled to be a meteor. As she watched, it seemed to grow larger. Suddenly, Samantha felt a strange, tingling sensation. The world around her blurred. When her vision cleared, she was standing in a metal room with curved walls and strange symbols on the surfaces. 2 tall, thin creatures with gray skin and large eyes stared at her. "Subject secured," one said in a strange, clicking language that somehow translated in her mind. Samantha's military training kicked in. She controlled her fear and quickly assessed her situation. She was in some kind of cell, with a transparent barrier separating her from the aliens. 4 other humans were in similar cells nearby. They looked terrified. "What do you want with us?" Samantha asked calmly. The aliens seemed surprised that she could speak. One of them approached the barrier. "You will be studied," it said. "Your species is primitive but interesting. My name is Lieutenant Samantha Wright. I demand you return us to Earth immediately," she said firmly. The alien made a sound that might have been laughter. "Demands? You are in no position to make demands. Human, you are specimens now." Samantha noticed that when the alien spoke, a small device on its neck glowed. Some kind of translator, she guessed. She also saw that the transparent barrier had a control panel beside it. Back on Earth, Alan Nelson was tracking the alien ship's movements. "Sir, it's taken up position in high orbit, and I'm getting reports of people disappearing and flashes of blue light." Colonel Barnes was on the phone immediately, reporting to his superiors. The world's military forces went on high alert. On the alien ship, Samantha was watching the guards carefully. They seemed overconfident, barely paying attention to their prisoners. She had noticed that the barriers flickered slightly when the aliens passed through them. There must be a way to disrupt them. In the cell next to her was a young man who had introduced himself as Pete Garcia, an electronics engineer. Samantha got his attention and whispered her observations about the barrier and the translation devices. Pete nodded. "I think those translator devices might be using some kind of electromagnetic field. If we could create a surge." The aliens returned, pushing floating trays of equipment into the room. "Preparation for testing will begin," one announced. As they approached Samantha's cell, she pretended to collapse. The aliens paused, then entered her cell to examine her. As they bent over, she sprang up, grabbing the translator device from one alien's neck. She smashed it against the floor, causing a spark that momentarily disrupted the barrier field. "Now!" she shouted to the others. Pete and the others rushed their barriers at the same moment. The fields flickered and failed. Chaos erupted as the humans escaped their cells. The aliens were physically weaker than the humans, not used to physical confrontation. Samantha quickly subdued one guard while Pete grabbed what looked like a weapon from another. "We need to find a way to contact Earth," Samantha said, examining the alien technology around her. Pete nodded, already working on a control panel he had opened. "Their systems are advanced, but I recognize some basic principles," he said. "If I can reconfigure this communication array..." The ship's alarms began to sound. More aliens would be coming soon. Two of the other prisoners stood guard at the door while Samantha helped Pete. "I think I've got it," Pete said finally. "It's sending on all Earth frequencies. Simple distress signal with our coordinates." Scientist Murr rushed into the security center, alarmed by the warnings flashing across the screens. "Captain, the specimens have escaped containment. They've disabled 2 guards and accessed our communications array." Captain Zex couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Impossible. Recapture them immediately and block all transmissions." But it was too late. The signal had already been sent. On Earth, Alan Nelson watched as his equipment picked up a strange transmission. "Sir, we're receiving a signal. It's coming from the anomaly, but it's using our own emergency frequency." Colonel Barnes leaned forward. "What does it say?" Alan listened to the message, his eyes widening. "It's Lieutenant Wright from the Air Force. She says they've been abducted by aliens and they're fighting back." The room fell silent. Then Colonel Barnes straightened his uniform. "It appears we're not alone in the universe after all, and it seems we've just made first contact." In space, the Kelvari ship hovered, its occupants completely unaware that they had just picked a fight with the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The news of alien contact spread across Earth like wildfire. Governments that once fought each other now held emergency meetings. Within days, the United Nations called for a global response plan. Colonel Barnes stood before the hastily assembled Earth Defense Council, a group of military leaders from every major nation. "Lieutenant Wright's signal confirmed what we suspected. We are not alone and the aliens have hostile intent," he said. Alan Nelson sat nearby, operating a display that showed the alien ship's position. "They're still in orbit. Our satellites can now track them since we know what to look for." General Susan Carter of the United States nodded. "What are our options? We can't reach them with our current weapons." "We don't need to," Alan said. "Lieutenant Wright and the other abductees are fighting back from the inside. If we can establish reliable communication, we can coordinate." On the Kelvari ship, Samantha and Pete had been recaptured after sending their message. They were in a more secure holding area now, along with the 3 other humans: Greg Bell, a construction worker, Olivia Kim, a doctor, and Frank Miller, a retired police officer. Scientist Murr circled them, clearly upset. "Your behavior is not normal for primitive species. You should be cowering in fear." "Sorry to disappoint you," Samantha said. "Humans don't cower well." Murr made some notes on a clear tablet. "The High Council must be informed of this. Your species may require further evaluation." After Murr left, Samantha turned to the others. "They underestimate us. That's our advantage." Frank nodded. "I noticed their security systems have patterns. The guards change every 6 hours. The door fields flicker when they bring food. I managed to get a look at their ship schematics when I was at the control panel." Pete added quietly. "This vessel is just a research ship. There are much bigger ones out there." Olivia, who had been examining the strange food they'd been given, looked up. "They're studying our biology too. I saw tests being prepared. They want to know our weaknesses. Then we need to learn about them first," Samantha said. Back on Earth, The first major decision of the newly formed Earth Defense Force was to reveal the truth to the public. Instead of panic, the news of alien contact created a wave of unity, unlike anything seen before. Dr. Jake Collins watched the announcement from his laboratory at MIT. He was 40 years old with dark hair graying at the temples. As one of the world's leading physicists, he had always believed in extraterrestrial life. Now he had proof. His phone rang. It was an official from the EDF. Dr. Collins, we need your expertise. A team is being assembled to analyze alien technology and develop countermeasures. Will you join us? Jake didn't hesitate. I'll be on the next flight. In space, the Kelvari ship's commander received a transmission from the Imperium High Council. Captain Zex, your report is disturbing, said High Commander Vox. This species shows unusual resistance. The Council requires more information before deciding their fate. What are your orders, High Commander? Asked Captain Zex. Send a clear message. These humans must understand the power they face. There is a small settlement on their fourth planet. Destroy it as a demonstration. Captain Zex bowed. It will be done. The Kelvari ship moved away from Earth, heading toward Mars. The humans in captivity felt the change in the ship's movement. Something's happening, Pete said. Through a small viewport in their cell, they could see Mars growing larger. The red planet now hosted Hope Colony, the first permanent human settlement beyond Earth with a population of nearly 3,000 people. They're headed for Mars, Samantha realized with horror. We need to warn them. On Earth, Alan noticed the change in the alien ship's trajectory. Sir, they're moving toward Mars. Colonel Barnes immediately contacted Mars. Hope Colony, this is Earth Defense Force. You have an unidentified spacecraft approaching. Begin emergency evacuation procedures immediately. But it was too late. The Kelvari ship fired a single energy pulse at the Mars colony. In an instant, the dome structures cracked and shattered, exposing the inhabitants to the harsh Martian atmosphere. 3,000 lives extinguished in minutes. Earth watched in horror as the first human settlement on another world was destroyed. On the Kelvari ship, the human prisoners saw the destruction through the viewport. Greg slammed his fists against the barrier. Frank closed his eyes in silent prayer. Olivia sobbed quietly. Samantha turned to see Captain Zex watching their reactions. This is what happens to species who resist the Imperium, the alien said through his translator. Your world will submit or face similar consequences. You've made a mistake, Samantha said, her voice calm despite her rage. You think this will frighten us into submission. But humans don't work that way. We will see, Zex replied. The response from Earth was swift. Nations that once pointed nuclear weapons at each other now united their military forces. The Earth Defense Force became a global priority overnight. Resources poured into research and defense. At the EDF headquarters, Jake Collins examined the data collected from the alien ship's transmissions. They're using a form of quantum communication, he explained to Colonel Barnes and Alan. It operates on principles I've only theorized about, but I think we can adapt our satellite network to disrupt it. How long will it take? Barnes asked. With global cooperation? Weeks instead of years, Jake replied. The Kelvari ship returned to Earth orbit, expecting to find a planet ready to surrender. Instead, they found something unexpected. Their scans detected unusual activity. Satellites being repositioned, energy signatures changing. Captain, the humans are altering their defense systems, reported the Kelvari tactical officer. They appear to be adapting their primitive technology. Captain Zex frowned. Impossible. They cannot understand our technology. Nevertheless, something is happening, the officer insisted. In the holding cells, the human prisoners had been developing their own plans. Frank had been systematically testing the barriers, finding weak points. Olivia had been analyzing the aliens' physiology by careful observation, noting that they seemed sensitive to certain light frequencies. Pete had managed to remove a small component from their food delivery system, a simple act that went unnoticed, but gave him materials to work with. The Kelvari were so confident in their superiority that they failed to notice these small acts of resistance. On the 30th day of captivity, Earth made its move. Under Admiral Lisa Hernandez's command, Earth launched its first coordinated attack. It wasn't much, just 3 space vessels hastily upgraded with technologies based on Jake's research. All ships maintain formation, Admiral Hernandez ordered, from the bridge of the EDF Defiance. Activate disruption fields on my mark. The small Earth fleet approached the much larger Kelvari vessel. The alien ship fired warning shots, confident that their advanced weapons would destroy the primitive Earth vessels easily. But when they fired, something unexpected happened. Their energy weapons dispersed harmlessly against the Earth ship's shields. Shields based on technology Jake had developed from studying the Kelvari transmissions. Impossible, Captain Zex shouted as the Earth ships closed in. The humans had done what the Kelvari thought impossible. They had adapted. They had learned. And now, they were fighting back. The most dangerous species in the galaxy had been provoked, and they were just getting started. The 3 Earth ships circled the larger Kelvari vessel. Admiral Hernandez watched from the bridge of the Defiance as the alien ship tried to target them again. Once more, the energy weapons dispersed against their shields. Their weapons can't penetrate our defenses, reported her tactical officer. Dr. Collins's adaptation of their technology is working. Hernandez nodded. Launch the rescue pods. Commander Ramirez, you're up. On the lower deck, Commander Peter Ramirez and his special operations team prepared to board the alien vessel. They wore black armor enhanced with the new technology. Each carried weapons designed based on Jake's research. Remember, our priority is rescuing our people, Ramirez told his team. We go in fast and quiet. The small pods launched from the Earth ships, speeding toward the Kelvari vessel. On board the alien ship, alarms sounded. Captain, the humans are attempting to board us, the tactical officer reported. Captain Zex stared at the view screen in disbelief. Impossible. No primitive species has ever dared attack an Imperial vessel. In the holding cells, Samantha and the other prisoners heard the alarms. Frank looked up from the device he and Pete had been secretly building from stolen parts. Something's happening, he said. Samantha moved to the viewport. Through it, she could see the Earth vessels. They came for us, she whispered. Pete finished, connecting the final wire on their device. Well, we should give them a proper welcome then. He activated the device. It emitted a high-pitched frequency that made the aliens in the corridor outside clutch their heads in pain. The barriers flickered and failed. Now! Samantha shouted. The prisoners rushed out as Ramirez's team breached the hull nearby. The humans met in the corridor, both groups surprised to see each other. Lieutenant Wright? Ramirez asked. Samantha saluted. Commander, your timing is perfect. We need to move. This ship is calling for reinforcements, Ramirez said. As they made their way toward the escape pods, they passed the ship's data center. Pete stopped. Wait. We should take their data. It could help Earth prepare. Ramirez hesitated, then nodded to one of his tech specialists. Do it, 2 minutes, no more. While they downloaded the Kelvari data, Captain Zex was on the command deck sending an urgent message to the Imperium. Hi, Commander, we are under attack. The humans have weapons that can block our energy cannons. They are boarding our vessel. Hi. Commander Vox's image flickered on the screen. This is unexpected. How have they adapted so quickly? Unknown, High Commander. They should not be capable of understanding our technology. Yet they seem to have reversed some of our systems. Vox's expression darkened. You have failed, Captain Zex. The Council will be informed. Retreat now and return to Imperial space. As the Kelvari crew prepared to jump to faster-than-light speed, Ramirez's team and the freed prisoners reached the escape pods. The ship shuddered as its engines powered up. We need to go now, Ramirez shouted. They launched the pods just as the Kelvari ship disappeared in a flash of light. Admiral Hernandez ordered the Earth vessels to retrieve the pods. Back on Earth, the small victory was celebrated, but military leaders knew it was just the beginning. The data stolen from the Kelvari ship confirmed their worst fears. Jake Collins examined the information in the EDF laboratory. Alan Nelson stood nearby, watching as the physicist worked. It's worse than we thought, Jake said. Their empire controls hundreds of star systems. They've conquered dozens of other species. And now they'll come for us in force, Alan said. Jake nodded grimly. But the data also gives us an advantage. We can see how their technology works, how their society functions. They've never faced a species that could adapt like we can. In a secure medical facility, Dr. Emma Davidson studied the alien biology. She was 30 years old, with dark skin and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had been called in to examine samples retrieved from the Kelvari ship. Their physiology is fascinating, she told General Carter. They're physically weaker than humans, but their brains are larger. They process information differently. Any weaknesses we can exploit? The general asked. Emma pointed to her screen. Several. They're sensitive to certain sound frequencies, as the prisoners discovered. Their vision is primarily adapted to see in low light conditions. Bright flashes disorient them. General Carter smiled. Good work, Doctor. This will help us plan our defense. In the weeks that followed, Earth prepared for war. Factories that once built cars now produced spacecraft parts. Scientists from rival nations worked together, sharing discoveries and innovations. Meanwhile, in the depths of space, the Kelvari High Council was in session. The Great Chamber held the leaders of the Imperium, surrounded by displays showing the human world. This species presents an unexpected threat, High Commander Vox said. They adapt too quickly. They resist when they should submit. Council Elder Lear, the oldest and wisest of the Kelvari, leaned forward. In 1,000 years, no species has ever taken an Imperial vessel by surprise. These humans are different. They must be eliminated, another council member said. Before they become a true threat, High Commander Vox nodded. I agree. I will lead the fleet personally. We will show these humans the full might of the Imperium. The Kelvari assembled their armada, 300 warships, each many times larger than the research vessel, prepared to jump to Earth's solar system. On Earth, the stolen data allowed the defense forces to detect the coming attack. Admiral Hernandez called an emergency meeting with the world's military leaders. They're coming with everything they have, she said. 300 ships, heavily armed. We have 12. Can we evacuate? Asked one general. To where? Hernandez replied. No, we stand and fight. Commander Ramirez presented his plan. They expect us to fight conventionally, to meet force with force. But humans have always excelled at unconventional warfare. He displayed a map of the solar system. We use the asteroid belt as cover. Hit-and-run attacks, never engage directly. Use their expectations against them. Jake Collins spoke next. We've adapted more of their technology. We've created devices that can disrupt their communications, confuse their sensors. Admiral Hernandez looked around the room. We're outnumbered and outgunned. But remember what they don't know. They've picked a fight with the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Major Kevin Walsh, a communications specialist, raised his hand. I have an idea for psychological warfare. The data we stole shows the Kelvari have never experienced it before. As the humans prepared their defenses, the Kelvari armada emerged. From faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system, High Commander Vox surveyed the scene from his flagship. Begin the attack, he ordered. Show no mercy. The Kelvari ships moved forward confidently, their commanders certain of an easy victory. They had no idea what awaited them. The most adaptable species in the galaxy was ready to fight for its survival, and they would not go quietly. The Kelvari armada entered the solar system with overwhelming force. 300 warships against Earth's 12 defenders. The odds seemed impossible. Admiral Hernandez watched from the bridge of the Defiance as the enemy approached. Earth's small fleet was hidden among the asteroids between Mars and Jupiter. All ships maintain radio silence, she ordered. Remember the plan. The plan was unlike anything in conventional warfare. It was a human plan, born from millennia of fighting other humans. The Kelvari had never experienced anything like it. As the alien fleet moved past the asteroid belt toward Earth, they detected no resistance. High Commander Vox smiled in satisfaction. "The humans hide," he said. "They know they cannot win." Then, without warning, 5 small Earth ships darted from behind different asteroids. They fired not at the Kelvari ships, but at nearby asteroids, changing their trajectories. Dozens of massive space rocks suddenly moved toward the Kelvari fleet. "Evasive action," Vox shouted. The large alien warships tried to move, but they were too slow and too close together. Several smaller vessels were crushed by asteroids. Others collided with each other in their panic to avoid the unexpected attack. The Earth ships disappeared back into the asteroid field before the Kelvari could target them. High Commander Vox growled in frustration. "Find those ships, they cannot hide forever." But the humans had no intention of hiding forever. Their strategy was to strike and retreat, again and again from different directions. On Earth, General Maria Rodriguez oversaw Operation Firewall from the main defense headquarters. The planet's surface now bristled with defensive weapons adapted from Kelvari technology. "Dr. Collins, report," she said into her comm unit. Jake's voice came through, tired but determined. "The final modifications to the prototype are complete. If Captain Harrison's team can place it on their command ship, it should work." "Should?" the general asked. "It's based on their own technology, but we've added something they'd never think of," Jake replied. "Something uniquely human." Nearby, Samantha Wright and Alan Nelson worked with Dr. Emma Davidson, preparing for the next phase of the plan. After their rescue from the Kelvari ship, they had become key members of the Earth Defense Force. "The data we stole shows their entire fleet connects through a quantum communication network," Alan explained. "They share targeting data, tactical updates, everything. Which makes their coordination perfect," Samantha added, "until someone disrupts that network." In space, the battle continued. The Kelvari fleet pushed forward despite the harassment from Earth ships. They were now approaching the orbit of Earth's moon. Captain Steve Harrison prepared his small team aboard the stealth ship Shadow. Their vessel was tiny compared to the Kelvari warships, barely large enough for 6 people and their equipment. But it had one critical advantage. It was nearly invisible to Kelvari sensors. "Final checks," Harrison ordered his team. "Once we're aboard their command ship, we'll have 15 minutes to plant the device and get out." His second-in-command, Lieutenant Ben Russell, checked the prototype device one last time. It was surprisingly small, about the size of a football, but contained technology that might save Earth. "Device is ready, Captain," Russell confirmed. The Shadow slipped between the massive Kelvari ships, approaching High Commander Vox's flagship. The immense vessel was nearly 2 miles long, bristling with weapons and protected by energy shields. "Their shields are designed to stop attacks, not small ships moving slowly," Harrison reminded his team. "We drift in with their own debris." The recent asteroid attacks had left plenty of wreckage floating around the Kelvari fleet. The Shadow powered down and drifted with this debris, approaching the flagship's hull. Inside the flagship, High Commander Vox prepared for the final assault on Earth. "Begin bombardment of their defensive positions," he ordered. "Once those are eliminated, we will destroy their population centers." The first wave of Kelvari ships moved into Earth's atmosphere. They were met with a barrage of energy weapons fired from ground installations. Several alien ships crashed to the surface, but more kept coming. Meanwhile, the Shadow reached the hull of Vox's flagship. Harrison's team exited their ship in space, suits carrying the prototype device. Using tools designed by Jake Collins, they cut through the hull and entered the massive vessel. "We're in," Harrison reported quietly through his secure comlink. Moving to the central core. The team moved through the ship's corridors, avoiding Kelvari crew members. The aliens were focused on the battle and never expected enemies inside their flagship. On Earth, the defensive weapons were beginning to fail under the constant assault. General Rodriguez received reports of Kelvari ships landing in multiple locations. "We need more time," she told Admiral Hernandez. Harrison's team isn't in position yet. "We'll give them time," Hernandez replied. She ordered the remaining Earth ships to attack the Kelvari fleet directly, a suicide mission, but one that might buy precious minutes. Aboard the flagship, Harrison's team reached the central core, the heart of the ship where the quantum communication network was controlled. They placed the device against the main processor, Device in position, Harrison reported. Activating now. He pressed a sequence of buttons on the device. It began to glow with soft blue light. What is it doing? Russell asked. According to Dr. Collins, it's creating a feedback loop in their quantum network, Harrison explained, but with a human twist. The human twist was something the Kelvari could never have anticipated. Instead of simply disrupting their communications, the device began broadcasting into the quantum network. It sent images and footage recovered from the Kelvari database, showing their recent defeats by humans. It showed Earth ships destroying Kelvari vessels, humans escaping captivity, and Earth's defenders standing against overwhelming odds. Most importantly, it broadcast these images to every ship in the Kelvari fleet simultaneously, and not just to the commanders but to every crew member. On the bridge of his flagship, High Commander Vox stared in horror as his view screens filled with images of human victories. "Shut it down," he shouted. "Cut the quantum network." But it was too late. The device had infected the entire system, and now it was sending a new message, one created by Major Kevin Walsh's psychological warfare team. It showed the Kelvari Imperium's history of conquering peaceful species, contrasted with footage of Earth's nations coming together in unity, despite their differences. The message was clear. The Kelvari were not the superior civilization they claimed to be. Harrison and his team returned to their ship as confusion spread throughout the Kelvari fleet. Ships stopped firing as crew members saw the broadcasts. Phase 1 complete, Harrison reported, returning to Earth. On Vox's flagship, confusion turned to chaos. For the first time in the Imperium's history, their perfect communication had become their greatest weakness. The humans had not just fought back, they had changed the rules of the game entirely. The Kelvari fleet hung in Earth's orbit, their formation broken. Many ships drifted aimlessly as their crews argued among themselves. For the first time in 1,000 years, the perfect discipline of the Imperium was shattered. "High Commander," Vox pounded his fist on the control panel. "Restore order. Cut all communications if you must." But it was too late. The damage was done. The quantum network that had been their greatest strength was now their greatest weakness. The human device continued to broadcast images of resistance throughout the fleet. On the Defiance, Admiral Hernandez gathered her officers. Harrison's team succeeded. Now we push our advantage. Earth's remaining ships emerged from hiding. They were joined by new vessels, hastily built and crewed by volunteers. What they lacked in size and power they made up for in determination. Ambassador Nicole Garcia prepared for her role in the next phase. She had once been a language professor, before the war. Now she carried humanity's message to the stars. "The translation is ready," she told Hernandez. "I've studied their language from the data we recovered. I can speak to them directly." "Make it count," Hernandez replied. Garcia's message was broadcast on all frequencies, including the compromised Kelvari network. Her face appeared on screens. Throughout the alien fleet. "People of the Kelvari Imperium," she began, speaking in their own language. "We do not wish to be your enemies. We wish to live in peace. But we will defend our world and our freedom with everything we have." In another part of the galaxy, the message reached other alien species who had been conquered by the Kelvari. For the first time, they saw that the Imperium could be challenged. On a planet called Neri, Governor Kaz of the Vosi people watched Garcia's broadcast with growing hope. The Vosi had been slaves of the Kelvari for 3 centuries. "If the humans can resist, perhaps we can too," he whispered to his advisors. Similar conversations happened across a dozen worlds. The spark of rebellion was lit. Back at Earth, High, Commander Vox had finally managed to isolate his flagship from the infected network. He gathered his loyal officers. "We must crush these humans completely," he raged. "Prepare the planet killer weapon." The planet killer was the Imperium's ultimate weapon, capable of destroying an entire world. It had been used only twice in their history, against species that had proven too dangerous to control. As the weapon powered up, Earth's sensors detected the massive energy buildup. General Rodriguez contacted Admiral Hernandez immediately. "They're preparing something big," she reported. "Our readings are off the charts." Samantha Wright, who had studied the Kelvari data more thoroughly than anyone, recognized the pattern. It's their planet killer weapon. We found references to it in their database, but no details on how it works. Jake Collins looked grim. If they fire that, all our defenses will mean nothing. Captain Harrison volunteered for a final mission. My team can try to disable it. Too risky, Hernandez argued. Their security will be at its highest. We have no choice, Harrison insisted. As they prepared for this last desperate mission, Alan Nelson noticed something in the sensor data. Wait, look at this. The weapon creates a quantum field similar to their communication network. Jake examined the readings and suddenly smiled. That's it. They're using the same technology. If we can amplify our device's signal, we might be able to affect their weapon. They worked frantically to modify the prototype. Harrison's team would still need to get close enough to the flagship to establish the connection. The shadow slipped through the chaotic Kelvari fleet once more, approaching Vox's flagship. This time security was much tighter. They barely made it through the defenses. Inside, they fought their way toward the weapon control center. 2 of Harrison's team were injured in firefights with Kelvari guards. We're running out of time, Harrison said as they reached the massive chamber where the planet killer was controlled. Lieutenant Russell placed the modified device near the weapon's control systems. Activating now. The device didn't destroy the planet killer as they had hoped. Instead, it created a cascading failure that spread through the quantum field. The energy meant to destroy Earth was redirected back into the Kelvari fleet. Ships began to lose power. Control systems failed. Weapons went offline. On the flagship's bridge, High Commander Vox watched in horror as his fleet was crippled by their own technology. What have they done? He whispered. Harrison and his remaining team escaped the flagship as systems failed around them. They returned to Earth as the Kelvari fleet drifted helplessly in space. For the first time in its 1,000-year history, the Kelvari Imperium retreated. Their once mighty armada limped away from Earth, returning to their own territory to report their unthinkable defeat. In the months that followed, Earth received transmissions from other species who had been under Kelvari control. Ambassador Garcia established contact with a dozen worlds, forming what would become known as the Galactic Coalition. 1 year after the Battle of Earth, the Council of Free Worlds met for the first time. Representatives from Earth sat alongside. Delegates from species they had never known existed before the war. Governor Kaz of the Vossi addressed the council. For centuries, my people lived under Kelvari rule. We believed resistance was impossible. Then we saw what the humans accomplished. Ambassador Garcia smiled. We did what any of you would have done. We defended our home. No, Kaz replied. We would have surrendered. That is why the Kelvari conquered us so easily. But you humans fought when victory seemed impossible. You adapted when you should have been defeated. You showed the galaxy that freedom is worth fighting for. Meanwhile, the Kelvari Imperium faced internal rebellion as subject species rose up against their rule. The once mighty empire began to fragment. In a prison on Earth, Captain Alan Nelson interviewed a captured Kelvari officer. I've always wondered, Nelson said. Why did you think you could defeat us so easily? The Kelvari looked at him with large, sad eyes. We have conquered hundreds of worlds. No species had ever successfully resisted us. What made us different? Nelson asked. You humans are unpredictable, the officer replied. All other species we encountered fought as we did, with direct force against force, but you changed the rules, you used our strengths against us. You fought in ways we could not understand. Nelson smiled slightly. Do you know why? Throughout human history, we've primarily fought ourselves. We've been battling the most dangerous opponents possible for thousands of years. Other humans. He leaned closer to the alien. Your fundamental mistake wasn't attacking Earth. It was failing to understand that you had picked a fight with the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The Kelvari officer looked away. In the silence that followed, both understood a simple truth. The universe would never be the same again. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, and they were here to stay.